to be entered, and then start. So, welcome everybody. My name's Matt, and
Frank, I'm not interested, darling. I'm just.
No, it's very loud.
Yes, well, I can't.
I'll just start off by saying if everyone could put their mic on mute,
so I've got to...
just to begin with, just so we take away any background noise and any disruption to the presentation. So if everyone can just put the mic on mute, which is at the bottom left of your screen. Yeah, great. So yeah, my name's Matt. I'm the Catchment Officer for the Trust, and I put together a little presentation today titled Beginner's Birding, Identifying Birds in the Dawn Chorus. And so this session is going to be recorded, so if you don't want to be included, I don't think your videos will be included in the video anyway, but just to let you know, this session is being recorded, so you can look back at it, and if you know anybody that wants to has missed out this time but would have liked to have come along, it's going to go on our YouTube channel, so look out for that. If you have any questions, there's going to be opportunities for questions throughout, but if you can just type them into the chat bar, I'll answer them as we go along, and Sally, my colleague, is going to read them out and choose a few of the questions. So yeah, I'm from the Don Catchment Rivers Trust. We're a charity with our headquarters in Doncaster, but we are basically the Rivers Trust for the Don Catchment. So that includes any river that flows into the Don, and it's mainly in South Yorkshire, but we do have a little bit in North Derbyshire, in Chesterfield, which where our current project is, our Hidden Heritage Secret Streams project. And that's a 4-year project which has been funded by the Heritage Fund. And so yeah, it's just to give a bit of a background of who we are and why we're here. And so yeah, this presentation is free, so it doesn't cost anything to sign up. But if you would like to make a donation, just go to our page, and I've put a link at the end, and you can donate through PayPal. So just to give you a little bit of a background on me, so I class myself as very much amateur. It's not a core part of my job, it's something I'm sort of interested in on the side. I got into birds around 10 years ago, and it was very much like the gateway to learning about nature. I wasn't really involved in nature at all in my early 20s. So yeah, it's the sort of thing that got me interested initially. And then I just sort of like worked on it in my spare time. Yeah, had more of an interest in it. So I would go along to bird walks, such as ones that we've put on here on the right. But yeah, just working on it myself, basically, just through my own interest. So yeah, I'm a bit of a generalist. I'm not an expert, I will say, but I will try and answer any questions you've got. But yeah, I may not know all the answers. So what are we going to learn today? So we're going to learn about why birds sing. There's a reason why they sing. So what is it? What is the dawn chorus? How we're going to identify birds via sight and sound. And as I said, there's going to be an opportunity for questions throughout the presentation. And I'm going to throw in, don't get worried, a little test at the end of each section, just to try and yeah, get your mind into listening to what you've just listened to. Yeah, try and remember as we go along what you've heard. So, why do birds sing? So it's typically the males that sing. You don't often get females doing the actual song. And it's the males that are defending the territory, so they want to you know, they want to keep certain like food sources, so they might defend like a holly bush or something like that. And it's often the fittest birds that are able to hold the territories and produce the most vigorous song, and that impresses the females, and that's sort of saying to the females, I'm going to produce lots of babies for you, and with hopefully the genes being passed on further down the line. Often when a male stops singing, that means he's found a mate, but you will get some males that keep on singing throughout, and that often means it's because they haven't been able to find a mate, and so they're still trying to attract a mate at that point. So they do make lots of other sounds as well, not just their song. So their song is something that they repeat again and again over time, and it is for those reasons of defending territories and attracting a mate. But they do make lots of other calls as well. They make alarm calls, so this is for when predators come in and they want to tell everyone around them that there's a predator, so watch out. So you will hear birds make an alarm call, but they also make lots of contact calls as well. So that's where they're just saying hello to each other, and who knows what else they're saying to each other, but it's just about staying in touch, saying, hey, I'm here, that sort of thing, just really simple stuff. But we are going to mainly concentrate on songs today. So I've structured the presentation around the dawn chorus. So just to give you a little bit of a background on the dawn chorus. So it occurs during the breeding season, which is from March to July, but it comes into its peak in May and June. And that's because a lot of the summer migrants that have come over from Africa and the southern hemisphere will have joined at this point. So we get a lot of willow warblers and blackcaps coming over at that time. And so that's when the dawn chorus sort of reaches its crescendo and it's most loud, because we've got all our summer migrants in, and that's when it's the most impressive. So I would recommend trying to get out in May, also because the sunrise isn't too early compared to June. So yeah, if you are interested, try and get out in May. So they sing, like birds tend to sing in the morning because of the low light levels, and this is because they haven't really got the opportunity to go and feed because they can't really see the insects or the seeds that they're going for. So this gives them opportunity to sing instead, but also that there's less predators around at the time. So if they're saying, hello, I'm here, through their song, that might attract a predator, which is something they don't really want to do. So they save it for the morning, so when it's not as bright. But also the air is a bit stiller around dawn, and that means the song travels further, so it might expand the territory or attract a mate from further away. But also there's a dusk chorus, which is probably less impressive than the dawn chorus, as less birds get involved. But yeah, through doing this research, I found out there was a dusk chorus, and I didn't know either. And then just going back to the light levels, you've probably heard the term early bird catches the worm, and this is particularly true for the dawn chorus. And this is because the worm feeders usually start to sing first, and that's because they're bigger, so they don't get cold as much as the smaller birds. So you often get a lot of thrushes like mistle thrush and blackbird singing earlier, and they eat worms. Whereas you get the smaller species such as wrens, who are typically insect species, singing on later. So that's how I've structured the presentation as well. So we're going to become detectives and try and figure out what birds that we can see and what we can hear. So identifying birds by sight. So there's a few clues you can look out for when trying to identify a bird by sight. So it's sometimes in their movements. So they might scurry along the floor, like dunnocks often do. or they might hop along. And these are all different clues you can figure out to what you're seeing. Also the behavior, so they might gather together in a group like gold crests do. Goldfinches tend to gather in a group. The size, so you often refer to a bird that you're describing either being bigger or smaller than a blackbird, or it might be bigger and smaller than a robin. So this is a really useful tool to sort of build up a picture of what you're looking at. And also that's what they use in the RSPB website is really useful, and it sort of takes you through a key of how to identify the bird that you're looking at. So it's good to get an idea of how big the bird was, whether it was bigger or smaller than a blackbird, and this is the sort of measurements that they use. You need to look at the shape of the bird. So is it round? Has it got a cocktail? And I've not included it here, but like the color is a big giveaway to most of the birds that you'll see. I'd really recommend investing in a pair of binoculars. I've got a pair of Nature Trek binoculars, which are about £90. But I did only recently get those in the last few years. So I have spent quite a long time doing birding without binoculars, but take it from me, like you'll get much more out of it if you do buy a pair of binoculars. And now is the best time to go out and looking for birds because they are singing, but the trees haven't come into full foliage yet, so you will still be able to see them. Whereas later in the year, they tend to get hidden by branches and leaves, so you'll hear them sing, but you won't necessarily know what they look like. So a few clues into figuring out what a bird sounds like, or identifying and remembering the song. So a few ways that you can remember it is by listening to the pitch or the timbre of the song. So it might be a high pitch, like a blue tit. And if you compare it to a blackbird, this is relatively low. And flute-like, but I'll go into that in a second. Birds might repeat themselves, and this might give them away what type of bird it is. So song thrushes repeat the phrases 3 times. Also, in a lot of the bird books, they give descriptions of what the song is like. So you're going to probably hear me doing a lot of bird impressions, and I apologize for that, but I just find them really useful to do a little impression just to help it stick in people's minds. So the blue tit does a little seep seep hee hee hee, seep seep hee hee hee, and sometimes there's just no other way of describing what that sounds like other than saying it like that. So you can use similes. So the great tit is thought to be like a squeaky wheelbarrow, but you can use whatever works for you. So when I hear a woodpecker doing its call, I think it sounds like a squeaky dog toy, just because it's like really sharp and like just one sound. But you know, you just gotta do whatever works for you. You can use a mnemonic. So for example, the yellowhammer is supposed to say a little bit of bread and no cheese. And whether or not you think it sounds like that, it does kind of work. But yeah, the best thing to do is go out into wherever you, just outside, and go out and see the birds as they make their sound. I found this particularly useful recently when I couldn't quite get the sound of a greenfinch into my head, even though people had said, you know, it sounds like this and it sounds like that. I couldn't hear what they were hearing until I was just out on my bike one day, and I stopped and I looked to the side of me, and there was a greenfinch that I recognised, and then it made its song, and from that moment I just knew what a greenfinch sounded like, and then I could hear them everywhere. All of a sudden there was greenfinches all around me, wherever I went. So it is it's just about figuring out what works for you. And also, like, I would get my friends to test me, so I'd try and learn as many songs as I could, and then I do a bit of a blind test, which we're going to do with you today, and yeah, often I'd get it wrong, and then they say, "Oh no, it's this," and so yeah, I try and work on those a bit more. But it is really useful to get someone else to help you test it. So. I want you to imagine we've all come along on this morning. It's very early, so thanks for waking up very early. It's about half an hour before sunrise, which is probably the best time to experience the dawn chorus, because it'll be very quiet in the woods, and then you'll slowly start to get the first birds making their sound. So imagine you've entered a dark woodland, and this is what we're going to hear first. So, like I mentioned, it's the bigger birds that make the sound first. So a robin is quite big, and it's Britain's national bird, if you didn't know. So very recognisable. It's got the red breast, and it's got like a sort of brown slate-coloured back. So yeah, most people know what this looks like. And so, despite it being named Robin Redbreast, it's not actually that red, is it? It's more of an orange colour. And this is because in the medieval times, when a lot of these birds were getting their names, they didn't have a name for orange, which came across when we got oranges. They named it redbreast, and you'll find this a lot in nature. So you get red foxes who are more this colour, sort of orangey colour. And so that's just where the names come from, which I thought was quite interesting. So let's listen to this song and see if we can listen to some telltale signs of what the song sounds like. So the robin, it's relatively got a sweet sound, and it's quite high pitched. And I'm going to compare it to the blackbird next, which is quite low. But with a robin, they tend to sing in phrases. So they'll say one phrase, have a little gap, then move on to something different, have a little gap, and then move on to something different. So that's one phrase, gap, and then move on to the next. I can repeat any of these when I say about the questions, so just let me know if you want any repeating or further explaining. But if we compare it to the blackbird, you can hear it's much deeper. It's supposed to be flute-like if you compare it to an instrument. But it also does that phrase, moves on, has a break, moves on. You'll also notice the blackbird does a little flourish at the end, which is important when we're comparing it to the next bird, the missel thrush. I'll just repeat this one again. So it'll do its little phrase, and then it'll do like a little rap at the end, like a little flourish. And just to help identify blackbirds by sight, it can be a bit confusing because you'll get, this is a male blackbird on the left, and so it's got an orange beak and an orange ring around its eye. But this is actually a female blackbird on the right, and it's much browner. It's got a speckled belly and light belly, and then it's got its brown beak. And this is an example of sexual dimorphism. And this is where the males and the females look quite different. And there's a reason for this. And so this is because blackbirds tend to sit on open nests. And so the female wants to be as camouflaged as possible. So they won't have the black color. They'll be a bit more brown, which sort of blends into the color of the nest and the vegetation. And so this is why we have males and females looking differently. But where you get whole nesting birds like blue tits, you often won't get them looking. It's quite difficult to tell the males and the females apart. And this is because they don't need to blend in. So the females can be as brightly coloured as they want to be. So if you remember the blackbird song in your mind, next we've got the mistle thrush. So the mistle thrush gets its name from eating mistletoe, but we don't have an awful lot of that in the UK. So they do prefer to eat hawthorn and holly. The mistle thrush also has another name, which is stormcock. And this is because it likes to sing very early on in the breeding season. So you'll get it singing in January, February time. And this is when the weather's still a bit rough, so you get lots of wind and rain. And so it'll sit on the top of a tree during this time when it's getting battered by wind and rain. And it'll still be singing its song really strongly, and that's why it gets its name, the stormcock. So the mistle thrush, I'm going to do the song thrush next. So just to compare to the song thrush, it's much bigger than a song thrush. When it's not singing on top of a tree, it's usually on grassland foraging for worms, and they often have this sort of upright position. It can be a little bit difficult to tell the difference between a mistle thrush and a song thrush. But yeah, if they're on the grassland and they're in this upright position, it's usually a mistle thrush. But it is just worth doing a little bit of your own research to try and figure out the little sort of details that can help you figure it out. But one of its big giveaways is its song. So if we just listen to the song. So as you can hear, it's quite similar to the blackbird in tone. It's got a really low tone, but it doesn't have that embellishment, or it's not as melodic as the blackbird. The blackbird tends to have lots of sweeps and whistles, and it's very interesting. Whereas the mistle thrush, it's just a bit more boring compared to the blackbird. This is something I've only recently got my head around, so sometimes it does just take a little bit of practice to figure it out. So next, the song thrush. So yeah, it's a much smaller bird than the mistle thrush, and it was once the UK's one of the most common birds in the UK, outnumbering blackbirds. But as sort of habitats change and expanding urbanisation, they've become less frequent. So the song thrush, if we listen to their song, it's a big giveaway. Oops. So with the song thrush, they tend to do repetitions of 3, have a break, move on to something different, a repetition of 3, move on. But they do sometimes, that was a pheasant in the background, but they do sometimes get mixed up and either repeat it twice or 4 times. And this is usually at the beginning of spring, when they haven't quite honed down their song that well. So you will get song thrushes singing better towards the end of the season. And they also like to incorporate other birds' song into their repertoire. So they might copy other birds. But it's that repeating 3 phrases and then moving on is the big giveaway for the song thrush. Cool. So I just wanted to give a little opportunity for any questions that we have, but also I'm going to do a little test. So I'm going to play one of the songs that we just heard, And just if you want to type in the chat bar what you think it might be, and yeah, just to test your knowledge basically. Right, I'll just pause that there. Have you got any questions, Sally?
Yes, so most people are saying robin.
It might be the speakers, but it's not a robin. It's a blackbird. So if we go back to, if we can compare the robin, it's much sweeter and high sounding pitch. But it is easy to get confused because it does do that phrase and move on. So we'll play blackbird again. So it is much lower in tone, and it does have that little embellishment at the end. So hopefully that's ironed out any of those thoughts. Right, okay, so it's not as dark as it was once, and the sun has come up through the trees. And so we are starting to get a few more birds added into the dawn chorus. So these are often smaller birds. We do start off with a few pigeons actually, which are quite big, but these are mainly seed feeders.
Mama's got choc for you.
So next up is the wood pigeon. And so
Yay!
if everyone can just turn the mic off, if that's all right, we're getting a bit of background noise. So yeah, the wood pigeon is very common. You'll often see it in countrysides and in parks. And it is so common because its favourite food is oilseed rape, which we grow in our countryside. So if we look at how it looks, it's sort of got a slate grey blue colour to its feathers. It's got this telltale white patch on the neck, as well as a sort of pinky colour on its breast. But also the sort of neck of the pigeon is very iridescent, and yeah, it looks blue and 1 minute and then pink the next. So yeah, it's a very pretty bird in my eyes. So if we listen to the wood pigeon sound, and so you might have noticed I've got a Manchester City logo in the top right corner, and this is because it's said to, the wood pigeon is said to be a Manchester City supporter. So they'll say, Manchester City, Manchester City. I'll just play that again. So yeah, you might be able to hear the Manchester City bit of it. And if we compare that to next, which is the collared dove, they are Manchester United supporters, and they often just spelt out United, United. So hopefully you sort of can hear that comparisons. I got taught something completely different. I got taught the collared dove was saying, my brain hurts, my brain hurts. And just because that's what I got taught initially, that's just what stuck with me. So it's just whatever sticks with you. But if we look at the how to identify it by sight, so it's very different in coloration. It's got a little black fleck on its neck, and it's mainly grey, the collared dove. And if you didn't know what the difference is between the word pigeon and dove, there's actually no difference. It's just, we just have different names for the same thing, basically. So a pigeon is a dove and a dove is a pigeon. But it just sounds a bit nicer, doesn't it, the dove? So maybe that's why we call the collared dove a collared dove because we like it a bit more. It looks a bit sweeter, possibly. But the collared dove actually is a recent inhabitant of the UK, so it only came to breed in the UK for the first time in 1955. And at that time, people would travel from all over the UK to come and see these birds because they're quite rare here. But now they're really widespread and common. And so, yeah, just think of all those people that went to flock to see these birds that you can see in your garden now. So we'll leave the pigeons for a moment and next move on to the wren. So the wren has its Latin name. I've not really referred to the Latin names here, but this one's quite interesting. It's called Troglodytes troglodytes. And this literally means cave dweller. And this is because it often makes its nest under overhanging branches, almost like a cave, and they'll make it out of moss. So that's why it's known as Troglodytes troglodytes. And so with the wren, it's a very small bird. It's one of our smallest birds, and that's a big giveaway. If you see a small bird sort of hurrying under some vegetation, it's most likely a wren. But we've also got the cocktail is a big giveaway for the wren, and it's a very small brown bird. With the song, if we identify the song, what you want to listen out for is the trill. And so the trill sounds almost like a machine gun fire. So it'll do like a ticka 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 ticka, and then it'll do it again a little bit later on. So let me play it, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it. So hopefully you can hear that ticka 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 ticka. So that's the trill, and that's the big giveaway for the wren. And they'll sing the same song over and over again. They'll never change it. And actually heard a recording of this slowed down, and it's amazing how many notes it manages to fit into such a small space of time. And all this is saying loads of information about how fit it is and how much of a match it is for females. And yeah, it almost sounds like a bird of paradise when you slow it down with the sort of the sweeps and the whistles that it has in it. Right, so next is the willow warbler. And so unlike most birds that only molt once, and this is usually around July, the willow warblers will molt twice in a season. So this is really unusual for birds. And it's one of our most common seasonal migrants. So they'll come over in summer from sub-Saharan Africa, and we'll get about 2.4 million of these birds in the UK. The warblers are quite difficult to sort of identify by sight. So often you'll just get like a brown bird in a tree, and it won't have any distinguishing features. So that can be quite difficult to identify by sight, but it's the song that is really quite that gives it away what type of bird it is. So if we listen to the song. So with the willow warbler, it's said to start really high and then has a descending note. And it's thought to be sounding like it's falling down some stairs. So it'll start at the top, and then gradually, step by step, it'll fall down the steps and end up at the bottom. So you should start to hear these around now. I've heard a few willow warblers this year already. It is quite similar to the chaffinch song, which I'll explain later, but the chaffinch has a big giveaway for how to tell the difference between them. But yeah, if you just have that descending lines, it's the willow warbler. Another warbler is the chiffchaff. So they weigh less than a pound coin, and they come over from sub-Saharan Africa as well. So it's quite a distance for such a small bird. And again, it looks quite similar to the willow warbler, sort of yellowy green color with bits of brown. But luckily, the chiffchaff just says its name over and over again, so it's very easy to identify. So it'll say chiffchaff, chiffchaff, chiffchaff. It's a bit more of a choppy sound as well, so it's a bit like chip, chop, chip, chop, chip, chop. It sometimes gets a bit confused and says chaff, chiff, chaff, chiff, chiff, chaff, chaff, chiff, chiff, chaff. So you won't always get the classic chiff, chaff, chiff, chaff. Great, so we've done another 5 birds there, so we are getting through them. I know it's a lot to take in at once, especially if you're not familiar with the sounds of a lot of these birds. But I'm just going to play another sort of a test for you and see if you know what it is, and then I'll take some questions if you've got any. So have we got any questions or answers, Sally?
Yeah, loads of answers. Everyone's answered wren.
Correct. That's great. Yeah. Great. So yeah, it's that telltale machine gun fire that gives it away for the wren. Is that everything?
You've got. Oh, sorry, Matt. Go on.
No, I was asking if there's any more questions.
You got a question from Trevor, and he's just asking. So the everyday pigeon that comes to his garden, that's a wood pigeon. I think just confirming that, you know, I think that's what the urban pigeons as well. Like, are they all wood pigeons?
Yeah. So you, I don't think you tend to get many feral. You may, I don't know. It depends where your garden is. It could be any of those pigeons. But yeah, with the pigeons, the wood pigeon has the white neck. It also has a bit of a white barring on its wing. Whereas yeah, the collared dove is mainly grey and with the black stripes. So wood pigeons are really fat. They have like a big old belly. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a few clues to what type of pigeon it is.
Thanks, Matt. You've got another question. Paul's asking if he's right in understanding that the wren is the most common bird, yet the one that he's least seen.
Yeah, I also, so we've been doing quizzes with our volunteers, and yeah, you're right. The wren is the most common garden bird from the Big Garden Bird Watch survey that was done. I'm not sure if it's changed since the last one. It might have changed, but yeah, maybe it's because they're much smaller, or I don't know. But yeah, if you've not seen as many wrens, they are out there.
Great, thank you.
Great. So the sun has come up a bit more in the sky. It's getting quite bright now. It's starting to bring out a lot of our smaller birds because it's a bit warmer for them. They don't have to like puff up the feathers and try and stay warm. So yeah, and a lot of the insects are starting to become more active. So we're starting to get a lot more smaller bird species such as the great tit coming out. So with the great tit, we can identify it by sight first of all. So it's got a black cap. It's got this white patch on its cheek. It's got a black bib with a stripe going down its chest, and then a mainly yellow chest. And the way to differentiate it between blue tits as well, or other types of tits, is it is big, so that's why it gets its name, the great tit. Also, you can tell a male from a female based on the stripe on its belly. So the stripe on the belly will be thicker, sort of a wider banded black band, and it'll be right down to the bottom of the chest. So this one most likely is a female because it's a bit more patchy. It's not as a strong black colour down the middle, so I'm saying it's a female. And so with the great tit, we'll do its song next. And so with this one, it's said to say teacher, 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 teacher. But like I said earlier, it could be a squeaky wheelbarrow. So it's that two-note altering song that is the great tit. If you move on to the blue tit next, a little fact about the blue tit is, like most birds, they can see in UV, and it's the and there was a study done to find out that females with the most brightly coloured crest on the top of their heads attracted the males the most, and this is because this says to them that they're really strong and yeah, they're good feeders and and they'll be good mothers. So it's just a little insight into the world of birds and how their view of the world might be a bit different to ours. So yeah, a lot of them see in UV. So if we listen to the blue tit song. It does do that seep seep hee 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 that I mentioned earlier. Seep seep hee hee hee, seep seep hee hee hee. They will make other sounds as well, but they'll tend to do the seep seep hee 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 before any of those other sounds. And then just to identify it by sight, so yeah, it's very recognizable. It's got a blue head, white chest with a little bit of black and a little bit of white on its face as well. But hopefully most of you will be familiar with the blue tit. So next we've got the chaffinch. So this is another example of sexual dimorphism. So we've got the male brightly coloured chaffinch on the left. So it's got a bit of a blue head with red on its cheek, and it's a bit more red over its body as well. And then on the right, we've got the female, which is a bit more brown. But the way to identify the female is that white little fleck on its side. So if you see little brown birds with a white fleck on its side, it's most likely a chaffinch. The males also have another name, which is the chaffinch has another name called the bachelor bird, and this is because the males tend to flock together during the winter season, and you won't get many females in there, so hence bachelor. But also the males are said to have a slightly longer beak, so compared to the females. So if you see a chaffinch on a teasel, it's most likely going to be a male because those seeds are more difficult to get out and need a longer beak. So it's just another little interesting fact about the chaffinch. So if we listen to the song, it is going to do that descending thing like the willow warbler does, but it's said to have like do a big sneeze at the end, so it goes boop, 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 achoo. So hopefully you'll be able to hear this. So descending. big sneeze at the end. And the males will do this 4 or 5 times a minute, which means they're doing it around 3,000 times a day. So you're very likely to hear this one when you're out and about, because they just sing all the time, apparently. Next, another finch is the green finch. So yeah, if you look at its coloration, it's green. Yeah, it's very green all over. It's got a few sort of slate grey patches over it, and then a little bit of a yellow fleck on its side. And it's got that big, strong finch-like beak as well, which tells it apart from most birds. It is quite difficult to spot, and like I said, it's one that I've only recently become more familiar with. But it's the song that is the big giveaway, and it's quite different to all the other songs in that it's not melodic. It doesn't, it doesn't have different notes. It's more. People say it's like a wheezing sound, and that's how it was described to me. But I think it sounds like a sort of like a little mini lion doing a roar. But you can make up your own decision of what it sounds like and compare it to. So it's like that big wheeze sound. It's not going to do it again. But yeah, like I said, once I heard that, I hear it everywhere now. And this is our last bird, so the goldfinch. So the goldfinch is very recognizable. It's got that big red patch on its face, like it's put makeup on its face. And it's got this little gold stripe on its side, giving it its name. They do tend to come together in groups. They're very sociable, gregarious characters, and they're often like chatting to each other, and often sound like they're fighting. So yeah, it can sometimes be a bit difficult to pick out one of their songs, but let's listen to it and describe it. You might notice it has that trill like a wren. Yeah, it just did the trill. But it does lots of other sounds as well, and it does tend to repeat it, but I kind of think it sounds like we're in an episode of Star Wars, and it's lots of different lasers being fired off in all directions, going everywhere. So let's listen to it again, and you should be able to hear the trill, which is a telltale sign for the goldfinch. So yeah, that's it. So we've got another moment for questions, and I'll play another sound and see if you can guess what it is. Ooh. This one seems to have broken. Oh, we don't have a sound for the last one. Sorry, there's no test at the end, unfortunately. But if there's any questions, I can answer some questions.
There's one in the chat already from Alicia, which was, what time does the great tit start singing?
So you will
roundabout.
Yeah, you will tend to get in towards the end of the morning. So dawn chorus tends to start around half an hour before sunrise, and it finishes, like the sort of main bulk of it, around half an hour after. After sunrise. So it will probably, it will change as the as sunrise changes. as the year goes on. But yeah, you will get it towards later in the morning.
Awesome, thank you. We've also got another one from Trevor. A couple of weeks ago, his garden was absolutely full of goldfinch, but now they've all gone, and he's wondering why that is.
Yeah, so one thing that sort of springs to mind is if Trevor has lots of bird feeders in his garden with seed and fat balls, and they might have been coming to that over winter. But then as spring starts to come in, you get a lot more insects. So they will change their diet to insects, and so they can find that out in the fields and out in the parks and stuff in the countryside. So they will tend to leave people's gardens during that time. But it's still important to feed them, I think, just in case there's a cold spell. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Matt.
And so finally, yeah, the sun has risen. And I just wanted to, I've got a recording of the dawn chorus in full. And so we can just spend a minute or two just listening to it. Just if you want to close your eyes and pretend you're in the middle of a beautiful woodland. And there is a few that you might be able to recognize from that we've already played today. It's not a test, just try and listen out, try and center on one that you can hear. So let's listen to that. So hopefully you might have heard a blackbird in there, or a robin, a song thrush, or a wren. Those are a few that were in that little recording there. And all the recordings that I've taken from today are from this website, Zeno Canto, and it's just the place to go for if you want to learn bird song, if you want to hear recordings of bird songs. So they have birds from all over the world. So if you want to know what a kiwi sounds like, you can type in kiwi and listen to the sound of a kiwi. So yeah, I'd really recommend going to this website, Zeno Canto. But also for a quick, I often get the RSPB website up on my phone if I want to listen to a song, and they already have chose one of the classic songs of that bird, and they have quite a bit of information about the birds that you might be looking at on there. And also I mentioned it earlier, but they do have a good bird identifier. It's like a little key that takes you through what habitat it was, or like how big it was. So yeah, it might help you narrow down what type of bird you were looking at. These are the two bird books that I've got. So the Collins Bird Guide it's quite big, but it's very complete. It's for birds throughout Europe. Oh, sorry, Britain and Europe. So there is a lot of birds in there. But then I use the RSPB British Birds Handbook quite a bit more, and it gives little descriptions of the voice and the distribution, and it's much smaller as well. It's just for Britain, so yeah, that's the two books that I tend to use. But there's, you know, there's loads. You can pick them up in charity. They're always in charity shops, and as long as they've got like some good pictures in it, yeah, I just recommend getting any book basically. And that's it. So yeah, so thank you for coming along to this little workshop, and I hope you've learned something, and find opportunity for any last questions that you might have. But also just a reminder that yeah, it was free today, but if you would like to make a donation towards our trust, just go to our website and click on donate, and you'll be able to donate through PayPal. So thank you. And any last questions, Sally?
Yeah, there's a really good one actually. Whether temperature affects the dawn chorus at all?
Sorry, you turned down. Can you do that again, please?
Oh, sorry. Whether temperature affects the dawn chorus and the bird's ability to sing?
Possibly, if it's really cold, it might stop them singing a bit earlier. But yeah, I'm not too sure. Like if it's less impressive on cold days, I'm actually not sure about that one. So you might just have to do a little bit of Googling for that one, unfortunately. Sorry.